Hey guys! So as a lot of you probably already know, I'm currently in the process of packing up all of my things and kind of finishing my life in Japan and moving back to New Zealand. This is a huge process. I'm currently about 2 weeks out from the actual move itself, and I'm the kind of person who I plan everything about 5 years in advance, so I'm pretty much finished with everything except a few last minute things. And it's been a big process, and I'm sure that for most people, myself included, it's quite an overwhelming and stressful thing to go through. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of leaving Japan and the kinds of things that you'll need to do, like a checklist type of thing, and also just some advice and tips for you to help you not feel so overwhelmed and stressed about it, because it's a big deal. You're moving your whole life, it's a big thing. So, of course, as always, I'm only speaking from my own experience, and that is as someone living and working in Japan as an English teacher. If you're an exchange student or your situation is super different from mine, I'm sure that it'll be very, very different for you, so please don't take everything I say at face value if your situation is a lot different from mine. But I hope that some of this can help you to feel a little bit more relaxed during this very intense time of your life. So, let's get right into it. First, I'm going to talk about service providers because this is probably the easiest part of this whole process, or at least it has been for me. So, of course, you'll want to call up all of your service providers to tell them that you're leaving and give them an end date for the final date you'll be using the service. So that will be power, water, internet, phone, gas, all of that good stuff. Any bill that you get in the mail or any bill that you pay automatically online, just call them up and let them know your final date that you'll be in Japan until. This is something that you can get started on pretty early, which is really nice because a lot of these things you kind of have to wait until a bit later in the process to do. So it's nice to have those things that you can get out of the way and just check them off the list and not have to worry about. The way that this works is that they will make a note of when you want your final bill, and most of the time they will come to your apartment on the final day and give you your final bill. So if it's electricity, for example, they will do a reading for how much electricity you've used, and then you'll just pay them on the spot. Not sure how everything else works or how it works for everywhere. I don't know if this is just me, so I won't talk too much about it. But yeah, cancelling bills is obviously a really important thing to do, and it's, like I said, something you can do early, so that's really great if you can get that out of the way for yourself. Another thing that you can get onto pretty early is getting your Japanese pension refund. If you've been working in Japan, you will have received a little blue book when you first arrived, and that's your Japanese pension book. And every month when you get paid, they will take out a certain amount of your salary to go towards your Japanese pension fund. Of course, you're leaving Japan, so you won't need your Japanese pension, and you can get it refunded. So that's really important and something that's great to do. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to do it here because all of that information is available on the internet, so just go and look it up and make sure that you do that because free money, why not? You also may need to talk to your town office about leaving. This doesn't apply everywhere, but especially in smaller towns, the town office will keep a record of everyone who's living there. So if that is the case in your town, like it is in mine, you'll need to pop into the town office and let them know what date you'll be leaving. Once again, this isn't for everywhere, so just check and make sure that your area does or doesn't do this. If they don't, then you don't need to do anything about it, of course. Another thing that you'll want to start looking into quite early, because it can be a little bit complicated, is paying any outstanding residence tax that you have from living in Japan. The most common way that this is done is taking some money out of your salary every month just to pay the residence tax. However, there is usually a lump sum that is left over and wasn't paid by your wages when you're ready to leave Japan. So you'll definitely want to check into that very early because it can be quite a lot of money, and you'll want to make sure that you're paying it with your last few months' salary rather than leaving it until the last month, which can be a little risky. So definitely check into that. As I said, it can be a little bit complicated, but you will figure it out. Just make sure that you get into it early. There's also a ton of information on this online, so just look at that if you're feeling confused. Sending things home by mail is another thing that you can start on super early, especially in a place like Japan where the seasons are wildly different from each other. There should be a whole lot of things that you can separate very easily into things that I will need before I leave and things that I will not need before I leave. I know for me, because I'm leaving in summer, I sent home all of my winter clothes pretty much 4 months ago, I would say. Just packed them up into a box and sent them back. The other thing about starting this early is that you can use surface mail, which is a lot cheaper than any other faster kind of mail. So if you send things home a couple of months early, they'll go by surface and they'll get there in 2 2 weeks to 2 months, and then you can just have them there by the time you get back. This should all be pretty self-explanatory. Again, I just wanted to let you know that starting early definitely has its benefits here. Chances are you have a bank account in Japan. Well, I hope you do if you've been working here, because I don't really see how you would have worked that out otherwise. In terms of sending your money home, this can be a little bit complicated because Japanese banks are a little weird in that they don't offer overseas transfers automatically, which is kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie. But there are a few ways to do this, and the best way that I found is a site or a system called GoRemit. A lot of foreigners use this to send money home. Basically, you can apply online, you just need to send some identification and like documents to prove that you're working in Japan, and then you will be sent a little card in the post, and you can go to your bank and use that card to make an overseas furikomi. So that's probably the easiest way. It is a little bit complicated, and once again, it's totally up to you how you decide to do this. Just make sure that you look into it a little early, because I know that if I hadn't known that this was going to be complicated, I probably would have assumed it was going to be super simple, just like it would be in New Zealand. Don't assume that. Definitely look into this and look into how your bank specifically works and interacts with your overseas bank. Just a heads up. Next, let's talk about your apartment, or where you're living in Japan that is most likely an apartment. So, of course, you want to let your apartment building manager know that you'll be leaving Japan, and you'll have to leave at the end of a month. This can be kind of tricky if your flight isn't until like the middle or closer to the end of the next month, but you can figure that out with your apartment building manager, it's no problem. So you'll want to let them know, and then they will organize a time to do the final apartment inspection. So you'll need to clean out the apartment and leave everything looking nice. If you are not leaving your apartment to someone to arrive after you, you'll need to leave it completely empty. So that means getting rid of a lot of furniture potentially. And if you're not wanting to ship any big items back to your home country, there are a few ways that you can go about getting rid of furniture. The first way is to find out when the secondhand rubbish day is in your area and take it down then. I don't really recommend this way, as things that are bigger than a certain size, you need like a special dispensation to get rid of in this way, and you sometimes have to pay for it as well, so this isn't the best way, I don't think. You can also sell it to local secondhand shops, which I think is pretty great, and the best way I think is local Facebook buy, sell and exchange groups. I've used these a lot to get rid of some of my furniture that I don't want to leave here for the next person, and it's a really easy way to just find someone who's looking for exactly what you happen to be selling. Most local areas will have one, so just look up your area name and then buy and sell, so like Tokyo buy and sell or whatever. Okay, so that's how to get rid of things. The last thing about the apartment is when you first arrived, you will have paid your building manager key money most likely, and this can be quite a big sum of money. Unfortunately, unlike in Western countries, this isn't like bond money where you get it back if you don't damage the apartment, and you actually might end up having to pay more money if the building manager finds any damage to the place in their final inspection. So just keep that in mind. Your key money is not something that you'll be getting back. Sad, but just the way that it is, and I'm sure that you already knew that if you've been living in Japan for a while and paid key money. So that's basically it for the apartment. Now you're ready to leave. One other thing that you might have to do before leaving, if you are especially working as an English teacher, is make a speech at work, or several speeches depending on how many schools you teach at. This is something that I'm having to do, and I'm making my speeches in Japanese, and that was expected of me. I'm not sure if that's normal or if you could potentially make your speeches in English, but in terms of preparing for that, you definitely want to have your basic script of what you would like to say written out pretty early, or at least if you're like me, you want to have it written out pretty early, and then you can just practice it so that you won't be as nervous on the day. Unless you're fine like doing public speaking like that, in which case, good for you, like congratulations on that. I am not. So yeah, you'll be expected to make a speech on your final day in front of all of the students, and also in the staff room at the morning meeting as well. So that can be a little bit nerve-wracking depending, like I said, on the type of person that you are. Just be aware that that is a thing that you'll need to do. The last thing we need to talk about is flights. So you should have booked your flights home hopefully quite a while ago. The one thing that I will say here is make sure to double check the baggage allowance on each of your flights, because different airlines will have different baggage allowances. So for example, say that you're getting one airline to Narita and then another airline to your home country, you'll want to check both baggage allowances for both airlines, because if one is less than the other and you plan for the one that's more, you're going to end up having a problem at the airport when you try to get on with your oversized bags, and it can cost quite a lot to upgrade to a bigger size of bag. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you check all of the weight limits and everything for your bags. Apart from that, I think booking flights and getting them is pretty self-explanatory, so we won't spend too long on that. Oh, and one last thing about flights that I completely forgot to mention. You want to check when your visa expires, because my visa expires on the day that I finish working in Japan. So on the 3rd of August, I am officially done with work. So I'm supposed to go to work on the 3rd of August, and my visa also expires on the 3rd of August. So if I was flying out after the 3rd of August, I would probably be held at the airport and questioned for a while because I don't have a valid visa for being in Japan. This is really unfortunate that it sometimes works out like this. Like, I don't think that it should be, I don't think your visa should be able to expire that soon after you're due to finish working in Japan, but it's just the way that it is, so make sure that you check your visa. There are two options if your visa does expire super close to the date that you need to leave, like mine does. The first option is that you can extend your visa. You'll need to apply for this and it costs money. And the second option is use a day of Nankyu for your final day at work and just get a plane a day early, which is what I'm doing. So either of those options are totally viable and pretty easy, but I just wanted to make sure to let you know to check your visa expiration date because it is super important. And finally, of course, you will need to book yourself into a hotel for the nights that you're staying in Japan after you have to move out of your apartment. So this is, once again, all pretty simple. However, you do want to make sure that you book yourself somewhere, just because in Japan, depending on where you are, hotels can get booked up pretty early. And the other thing is, if you have to go to work on one of these days or more than one of these days, you want to make sure that the hotel is at least relatively convenient to where you work. Apart from that, all pretty easy. I think that's about it for practicalities, just like a checklist of things that is hopefully helpful to you. I'm sure that if your situation is different from mine, these things will be different, but I'm hoping that this can serve as kind of an outline for you, and then you can tailor it to your needs. So we've talked about practicalities, and now I just want to talk about the emotional aspects of leaving the place that you've been living for a little while. So let's talk about that. Basically, in terms of leaving Japan and how that makes me feel, what I've just been trying to do is make the most of my final time here in Japan. So for the last few months, I've just been going out and doing all sorts of things that I hadn't got around to doing, especially local things that I just, for whatever reason, hadn't managed to get to do yet. I've been trying to make sure that I won't have any regrets once I leave, and just all those things that make you feel good and will be nice memories for when you do leave. I think it's really important to make sure that you are making the most of your final time in whatever country you happen to be living in, just because you might not get the chance to come back there for a little while, and you want to be leaving on a positive note as well, or at least that's what I want. I want to remember my last few months in Japan as really fun and filled with friends and experiences and awesome things that I got to do. So that's something that I've been trying really, really hard to do. And of course, just spending time with the friends that I've made here and the people who I've got to know and got really close to as well, making sure that I make time for them and tell them how much I've appreciated everything that they've done for me and their friendship and everything. It's difficult to leave somewhere. I think it's always difficult to leave somewhere, right? Especially when you've lived there for a couple of years or so, when you get that support network and you really feel like a part of the community. It's difficult, and it's always going to be that way, but you can make it a little easier on yourself by making sure that you make the most of these last couple of months that you have. I think the nice thing about it is that because you know exactly when you're going to be leaving quite a while in advance, you can make sure that you're not missing out on anything in that last bit of time. So I think that's something that I'm really grateful for, and I feel very lucky that that was the case for me. So yeah, just emotionally prepare yourself and enjoy your last little while in Japan. It's a really amazing place and it has a lot of amazing things to do, so I'm sure that you'll find a ton of stuff to make your last few months really memorable. Okay, so that is about all of my advice for preparing to leave Japan. In terms of the practical stuff, I really just think getting started early is the best advice that I can give. It makes the world of difference. I cannot stress it enough. You will thank yourself later if you start preparing things early and then you don't have a mad rush in like the final few weeks before you leave. It is just the best advice that I can give you. In terms of all the emotional things, it's always going to be really hard to leave a place that you consider to be your home, but I think, like I said, having that knowledge, the prior knowledge that you will be leaving for quite a while, I think that really helps you prepare yourself emotionally and kind of build yourself up for it, and also to leave everything on a positive note, as I mentioned before. Okay, as always, if you have any other questions or comments about this kind of stuff, or anything really, leave them in the comments below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Apart from that, if you are leaving Japan, I really hope that this video helped you, and I hope that you're not feeling too overwhelmed or stressed, and if you are, chill out a little bit, just relax, you've got this, you've 100% got this, okay? Don't worry. I will talk to you guys next time. Peace!